Have you ever watched a crow and wondered what's going on in its little head? You might think it's just another bird looking for a crumb to eat. But let me tell you, there's a whole world of thought happening behind those dark, intelligent eyes. These birds, and their relatives like ravens and jays, are part of a family called corvids. They are some of the smartest animals on the entire planet. In fact, scientific studies have shown that the problem-solving skills of a crow are on par with those of a 7-year-old human child. That's right. These feathered creatures flitting around our parks and cities are outsmarting elementary school kids every single day. Let's dive into a classic example that really shows off their brainpower. Scientists, inspired by one of Aesop's fables, set up a clever test for New Caledonian crows. They presented the birds with a tall, narrow tube of water that had a tasty treat floating just out of reach. What did the crows do? They didn't panic or give up. Instead, they carefully started dropping heavy objects like stones into the tube. They understood that adding the stones would make the water level rise, bringing the floating snack right up to them. This simple but brilliant act of physics is something that even young children can struggle to figure out on their own. But their genius doesn't stop there. The scientists made the test even trickier. They gave the crows a choice between heavy objects that would sink and light objects, like styrofoam, that would just float uselessly on the surface. The crows consistently chose the heavy sinking objects, showing they understood the properties of different materials and how they could be used to achieve their goal. They even figured out that it was more efficient to add stones to a tube with a higher starting water level to get their reward faster. It's an incredible display of logic and understanding of cause and effect, all happening in the mind of a bird. Perhaps the most astonishing discovery came from observing how these crows handle tools. Some crows, particularly the amazing New Caledonian crows, are master tool makers. They will carefully snip and shape twigs or leaves into hooks to pull juicy grubs out of logs. Even more impressively, scientists have seen them build compound tools. When given several short sticks that were useless on their own, a crow figured out how to fit one stick into the end of another, creating a longer tool that could finally reach the hidden food. This ability to combine separate parts to make a new, functional object is incredibly rare in the animal kingdom, seen only in great apes and, of course, humans. One of the most remarkable things about crows is their ability to think about the future. Most animals live in the moment, focused on their immediate needs for food or safety. Crows, however, can plan ahead. In one fascinating study, scientists showed a crow a puzzle box that required a specific tool to open it. Later, after a delay, they presented the crow with a variety of objects. The crow consistently remembered and chose the correct tool it needed for the box it had seen earlier. It would then carry that tool with it, anticipating that it would get to use it later to get a reward. This foresight is a complex cognitive skill that we once thought was unique to humans. This ability to plan also extends to delaying gratification, which is a tough challenge even for many people. Imagine being offered a small, okay snack right now, or a much better, tastier snack if you just wait a little while. Scientists tested crows with a similar choice. They could take an immediate, less exciting food reward, or they could choose a specific tool. If they chose the tool, they could use it later to unlock a box containing their absolute favorite treat. More often than not, the crows chose the tool, demonstrating the self-control to pass up a small immediate reward for a much bigger prize in the future. This is a behavior that typically starts to appear in human children around the age of 5. You've probably heard stories about crows being clever in our cities, and many of them are true. One of the most famous examples is how crows in Japan have learned to use traffic to their advantage. They will place hard-to-crack nuts, like walnuts, on the road at a busy intersection. Then, they simply fly up to a nearby traffic light or wire and wait for cars to drive over the nuts and crack them open. But here's the truly genius part. They wait for the pedestrian signal to turn green, signaling that it's safe to walk, before they fly down to retrieve their perfectly cracked snack. This shows an incredible ability to observe patterns and understand complex human systems. And if you've ever felt like a crow was watching you, you were probably right. These birds have fantastic memories, especially for human faces. Researchers at the University of Washington conducted an experiment where they wore a specific, dangerous mask while they trapped and banded some crows. For years afterward, the crows would scold, dive bomb, and raise an alarm whenever they saw anyone wearing that mask, even if the person was just walking by peacefully. They not only remembered the individual face, but also taught the other crows in their flock that this particular face meant trouble. They hold grudges, but they also remember kindness, often bringing small gifts, like shiny pebbles or bottle caps to people who feed them regularly. So, what makes these birds so incredibly smart? For a long time, scientists were puzzled. The structure of a bird's brain looks very different from a mammal's brain. Mammals, including us humans, have a big, wrinkly outer layer on our brains called the cerebral cortex, which is where most of our higher thinking happens. Birds don't have this structure. For decades, this led people to believe that birds were simply not capable of complex thought. Our whole understanding was built on a mammalian model. But the corvids forced us to look again and challenge our old assumptions about intelligence. It turns out, you don't need a human-like brain to be a genius. Recent breakthroughs in technology have allowed scientists to peer inside the crow's brain like never before, and what they found was stunning. A 2020 study revealed that even though their brains are structured differently, the part of the bird brain called the pallium has circuitry that is organized in a remarkably similar way to our own neocortex. The neurons are connected with a mix of horizontal and vertical fibers, creating a powerful processing grid. This discovery of convergent evolution, where two very different species independently evolve a similar solution to a problem, helps explain how crows can achieve such primate-like levels of intelligence without a primate's brain. Another huge piece of the puzzle was discovered in 2016. When researchers counted the number of neurons in the brains of various birds and mammals, they found something amazing. A crow's brain, while small, is packed incredibly densely with brain cells. In fact, corvids have about twice as many neurons as primates with brains of a similar size. Think of it like having a supercomputer in a tiny case. All those neurons are packed tightly together, allowing for incredibly fast and efficient communication between different parts of the brain. This high neuron density, combined with a surprisingly large brain-to-body size ratio, gives them the raw processing power for their impressive mental feats. Of course, a powerful brain is only part of the story. Crows also have a long childhood, which is crucial for learning. Unlike many birds that leave the nest quickly, young New Caledonian crows can spend up to 2 years with their parents. During this extended family time, the parents feed them and, most importantly, teach them the fine art of tool-making and problem-solving. This long apprenticeship allows complex skills to be passed down from one generation to the next. Young crows and ravens also often form large gangs or flocks where they play, form alliances, and navigate complex social hierarchies, sharpening their social intelligence for the rest of their lives. The intelligence of crows isn't just a fun fact for a nature documentary. It has real-world implications for how we can live alongside these remarkable creatures. Their ability to learn, adapt, and solve problems means they are not just surviving in our human-dominated world, but thriving. They watch us, they learn our routines, and they figure out how to make our world work for them. This creates opportunities for some amazing partnerships if we are just creative enough to think of them. We are just beginning to scratch the surface of how we can work together with these feathered geniuses who share our neighborhoods. One of the most exciting areas of human-crow cooperation is in environmental cleanup. A theme park in France, for example, successfully trained a team of 6 rooks, who are close relatives of crows, to help keep the park tidy. The birds were taught to pick up small pieces of trash, like cigarette butts and paper scraps, and deposit them into a special box. Every time they dropped a piece of trash in the box, it would dispense a tasty food reward. The birds learned the task quickly and became a star attraction, demonstrating a practical and positive way to interact with local wildlife. This concept is now being explored on a larger scale. Several tech startups are developing automated systems designed to leverage the intelligence of wild crows for urban cleanup. Imagine a smart machine on a city street that recognizes when a crow drops a cigarette butt into a collection slot and immediately dispenses a peanut as a reward. Crows are natural foragers and are quick to learn cause and effect. They could potentially be trained to clean up some of the most common and difficult to collect forms of litter, turning an entire population of urban birds into a volunteer cleanup crew, all for the price of a few peanuts. As we look to the future, it's clear that we should view crows not as pests, but as highly intelligent cohabitants of our planet. Their minds are a testament to the fact that intelligence can evolve in many different forms. By respecting their abilities and understanding how they think, we can find new ways to coexist peacefully and even work together to solve common problems. From keeping our parks clean to simply appreciating the spark of genius in the bird on the telephone wire, the clever crow has a lot to teach us. We just have to be smart enough to listen.